Hey guys, it's Ethan from Zimmer Labs, and this is the Korbanth LS Hero V1 that I just finished building for Jalin. It is a really nice version of Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi Hero hilt, and as you can see, it's got a really nice shiny finish to it. It's just one of my absolute favorite versions of this hilt. So before we get into the build itself, I wanted to do a little bit of a comparison just so you guys can see some of the different hilt versions that are out there that have been done. Mostly the more recent ones. So these two, in my opinion, are just about as close to identical as you can get while still being made by different companies. Like I said, this is the Korbanth. This is actually a Korbanth / 89 Sabers product. This is the Phoenix Props / 7 Chambers hilt, and these two are quite literally as close to identical as you can get. They have the exact same measurements. They're built the exact same way. You know, they open at the exact same spots. All of the details are essentially identical. The only real difference between these two is the finish. This is a really nice matte finished hilt versus the Korbanth / 89 Sabers version, which is all a polished shiny finish. But otherwise, these two literally, I mean, they couldn't be any more identical. I mean, even down to the design. If you slide this clamp card off on both, they both come off the same way, and they are both mounted the exact same way. They both function the same way with some little tiny set screws to keep the clamp card in place. The LEDs and side button are done exactly the same way. The only difference here is the plastic insert that you get that goes inside the control box to hold the LEDs and the switches is slightly different. Otherwise, there's no difference whatsoever between these guys. So, I mean, I'm not sure exactly why it is. I'm not sure if maybe this was kind of like a joint designing effort between 89 Sabers, Korbanth, and Phoenix Props and 7 Chambers, or if 89 Sabers, Korbanth lifted the design from Phoenix Props and 7 Chambers, because I'm pretty sure this was the first hilt to be released of the two. I could be wrong. It could be the other way around, but I'm pretty sure this is the older of the two hilts. But at any rate, both very nice, both very well done. This guy here is the Korbanth LS6, and this guy is also a very nice job of a Luke Hero lightsaber, but it is different in a lot of ways. It's different in how it is designed, it's different in how it opens up, it's different in how all the parts were made and what materials are used. Like, this is just a aluminum piece here that is electroplated or maybe powder coated to be bronze, whereas this is actually solid copper. This is a solid brass piece here versus a solid copper piece. The clamp cards are totally different. The control boxes are totally different. The switch setup's totally different. As you can see from the side, the size of the control box is totally different, with the LS6 being a good amount bigger, and with also both buttons being on the side here, whereas with the Korbanth LS Hero V1 is just one button on the side and one button on the top. And then also, of course, really the main huge difference would be the, as you can see, the hilt expands on both the top and bottom on ball bearing slides, so you can do a really nice super fast, easy crystal reveal, chassis reveal, recharge port access. Just a really cool option and nicely done, well executed. That being said, the finish on the LS6 is nowhere near as nice as the finish on the other two. This is a flat satin type finish like the 7 chambers version, but it's nowhere near as nice. I mean, the control box has multi directions of, you know, machining work going in, so that the finish isn't consistent. It's not consistent with the rest of the hilt. And then the hilt itself has shiny parts, and then flat parts, and then shiny parts, then flat parts. Then the pommel itself is really, I don't want to say poorly finished, but it's either, these were all either a bit dinged up, or the machinist just didn't, you know, take his time to really make sure that they were cleaned up nicely. The difference in the two pommels is, you know, it's night and day, really. This is just, all the edges are nice and smoothed out, but still nice and sharp, whereas this one has jagged edges to a point where you might even almost cut yourself. But, you know, I'm not knocking either one of these guys. I'm just, you know, the point here is to show you guys the differences. But all of them are very nice in their own right and for their own reason. Now, to the actual build that I did for Jalin. Let's see. I'm going to start by breaking it down for you guys. These top two sections do come off, but basically front end here, back end here, and then the pommel itself unscrews right down here at the very bottom. Not where you would expect. Usually they would unscrew around here, and the machine job on these is so nice that you can't even see that these are two pieces here. Once you screw that in tightly, there is literally no seam to be seen, which is really nice. But that is where you go at it to separate the parts. Then to remove the control box, you just slide the clamp card down, and there is a hex or Allen screw here, and you simply unscrew that to remove the entire control box. With this build specifically, the way I did it was I made this control box into a single unit that's, you know, self-contained, modular, and with connectors on it. And the point of doing that is so that you can have a removable chassis. The point here was to create a crystal reveal chassis that was totally removable and modular. So that's kind of what we did here and why this is set up the way it is. So let's set it up. I'll show you guys how everything comes together. Well, I think the best way to assemble this guy, actually, you know what, before we even get there, I'll show you guys the electronics on the inside of the hilt. So from the top end here, the front end has stock Custom Works, Neopixel, very ultra short pogo pin connector in here with onboard pixels, obviously, and then inside is the other end of the connector, which is just the flat PCB side, which is going to mate with the pogo pin connector setup that's on the front end of the chassis. So you simply insert this guy and then pop the back end on, and then screw it until it's tight. But being sure, I want to make sure to do so in a way that has the female side of the control box connectors accessible through that rectangular cutout. Then you simply insert the control box and plug the connectors in. retighten that screw. And then we're going to reinstall the clamp card. But before we get to that, what you want to do with this guy to make it work better, because the switch, either your main switch or your auxiliary switch, is going to be this little guy right here, a little tactile switch. And since that has very little room for movement and room for it to be depressed, you have to give it some extra room underneath the clamp card. So in order to do that, what I like to do is I like to sand one end of the clamp card down. So as you can see, the front end of this clamp card is much thinner than the back end. And all you do is simply sand some of the silicone down to thin it out a bit so that you have more room for the button to be depressed, more room for the clamp card to move around inside of the control box top here. And you can see that there's actually a gap there now, whereas in the back there's no gap. And I'm not sure how else you would do this, because if the front end looked like this with no gap whatsoever, you wouldn't be able to press it down to press that tactile switch, because it would just be stuck, you know, in one position. And that tactile switch would either be pressed down permanently or up permanently, but you wouldn't be able to press it because there's no room for this to move. So sand that down a bit. I'd say take about 50% of the material off so that you have enough that you can actually go up and down with it. You can feel the switch activate. Then you're in good shape. The side buttons here has nice good action on it. Nice and clean, nice and loud, good click to it. And the trick with this part, as far as I'm concerned, the thing that's really important to do here is stabilizing this little black box, because the way it is designed and manufactured is it's just one solid black rectangle, and on the back side of it there's a round hole right in the middle of it. So you're supposed to glue that onto a tactile switch, which is sitting inside the control box facing out this way. But tactile switches, some of them you can spin around 360 degrees, which means that this little black box is not going to stay stable. It's gonna go side to side, and it's never going to be straight. It's always going to be crooked if it's simply attached by gluing it onto the switch. And that's not, you know, that's totally not what you want to happen. It's totally not optimal. But additionally, it's also not really structurally sound. It's not going to last because those tactile switches are held together by just, you know, almost nothing. A tiny little plastic tab or something is all that's holding it on. So if you hit it too hard with your thumb or something, you're going to end up just breaking it right off. So what I like to do is put a couple of steel pins in there. And all you have to do that is, if you drill into this black switch here from the underside, the side where the hole is, one on either side of the switch, and you can just do like a 2mm hole on both sides, and then take a couple of pieces of steel pin and epoxy them into this black switch so that they're permanently mounted in there. Then you can drill 2 holes going into the control box underneath this black section so that they line up with the 2 pins. That way when you stick this guy in and glue it onto the switch, it is no longer able to, as you can see, it's not going to get crooked. It's totally permanently affixed by those 2 steel pins. So they will take the brunt of any impact. You don't have to worry about it breaking off, and all the pressure is not on that switch anymore. It's on the 2 steel pins, and it's not going to get crooked on you. So that's kind of key. As far as how this guy works, just pop off the pommel here. That will expose the speaker underneath. And that's a 25mm premium bass speaker right there. It's a little bit bigger than the chassis instructions calls for, but you can fit it. You just have to trim a tiny bit of the inside plastic off this chassis piece, and it fits in there nicely. And the 2 pieces will snap together just fine. Connector header pins right here to connect the speaker to the female header pins inside, and now we have access to the chassis with a USB, SD card, main kill switch, and recharge port right underneath. So that's how you access the saber itself. Let's turn it on right quick. Set this guy back in there. Put the pommel back on and double check to make sure it's on. And you can tell if it's on because the little LED arrows are doing their random blink configuration. Typically what I like to do is just do red and green for on or off, so if the blade's off the LED is red, if the blade's on it's green. But there is a couple seconds in episode 6 where you see the control box and it does, you know, do a kind of random blinking sequence, so I tried to get that, or at least an approximation of that, just to do something different. And I like how the way it came out. I think it's pretty cool. Now, as I said before, the main power switch is hanging out right here underneath this clamp card, and the auxiliary is on the side. So I just reset the saber, put the speaker back in, put the pommel back on, and we can run through. So now everything is in here, fully turned on. Control box LEDs are working. Up top we have a custom blade plug that I made from some extra parts from an LS6 that I had. And pull this guy out so you guys can see it. It's very simple. All it is the LS6 comes with additional swappable parts, and one of those parts is an additional swappable head. So I took that head and I chopped the top off, and then I grinded and sanded it down so that it was small enough to fit inside a section of 1-inch tubing, blade tube. And so that's essentially all I did here, and then I glued it in with some 3M hot melt to make sure that there was nothing conductive on the backside here to touch the pogo pins that are sitting right here. And now the Neopixel connector with the onboard pogo pins are going to illuminate the blade plug and shine right through the sides, giving you a really nicely illuminated blade plug that looks screen accurate, and with a little bit of polishing, the finish now matches the finish on the rest of the saber with that blade plug. So this is another custom bit that, you know, is not something that came with the lightsaber. This hilt does come with a blade plug, but it's not something that is going to have any illumination because it takes up this entire emitter. It's a 1-inch blade plug, so there would be no shine through if you use that. So here's the one that it comes with. And basically it would go in right there, and the only thing that would be sticking up is this little bit right here, which looks essentially identical to this. This has actually got a bit more detail. But this piece is essentially useless because there's not going to be any light shine through around the edge. Now, to do the crystal reveal, you simply unscrew the top half here, slide the top half of the hilt up, and we have a dual quartz crystal reveal with a nice stainless steel and brass crystal chamber. Really nicely illuminated. And you can take the top half right off. You just have pogo pins on the end. is a good setup because you can display it like so, and the crystal chamber is nicely displayed, as you can see. Go ahead and tighten down that set screw. Very nice and responsive and loud effects, I have to say. It's a nice saber, nice size, fits nicely in the hand, very responsive and easy to use. Great effects. Actually really quite loud. It's actually quite a bit louder than I thought it was going to be, given that it's got a smaller than 28mm. It's got a 25mm speaker in it. But it doesn't sound any less loud than your standard 28mm premium speaker. In fact, it's even potentially a little bit louder than usual. So the speaker size is just about right for this. It's just about perfect. Let's pop the blade in real quick and I'll show you guys the blade presets. So we just gotta loosen up the set screw a tiny bit, half a turn. We've got a 7/8 inch blade here with a 1-inch blade adapter. Simply slide it in any orientation you want, tighten up the set screw, and voila. Sensitivity needs to be turned up a tiny bit. And this last one here is the Pov Blade, which is, I know I've explained this a million times, but it's the Star Wars logo blade. But it also looks like, you know, fire juggling, something along those lines. So if you take it out at night and you throw it around above your head, it looks like, you know, you're juggling fire torches or something, which is really, really pretty cool. And just one last time to show off the crystal chamber. Quite nice. .360 degrees, essentially. And that is about it. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. Jalin, I hope you like it. Let me know. And I'll get this guy ready to go out for you whenever you give me the go-ahead. And as always, stay tuned. Lots more coming.